Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Become a Villain in Highschool DXD Part 15. Before we start, please go support RageRevan for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Chapter 43. Fall of the Supernatural Season Finale. Issei was sitting in his room. He stood up knowing what will happen next. He knew today is the day. The day when the last of the supernatural falls. He has gotten so far with what he has done. This has all come through with years of planning. He looked at his final armor that he would wear for the final battle. It was described to be a Orbalisk armor, a unique rock-like material that had rune enchantments to it. It had glowing orange eyes meant for sight and a covering that covered his entire face. His helmet was a mixture of brown and white, while the rest of his body was the same color, except instead of being white, it was red clothing meant for a bit of comfort. The armor was resistant to heavy magic attacks, almost on par with upper god class beings. It also had a red flowing cape and a red visor on the faceplate meant for vision. The armor, despite looking stiff, is also quite flexible. Issei also had the final upgrade of Dimension Lost, since he had a feeling that the factions will throw everything in their power to stop the likes of him. He knew the major threat to his final advance is none other than Cices' Lucifer himself, the monster that many once feared. He shook his head, he has gone too far to turn back now. He approached the armor and touched it as he spoke. This is it, one final fight to decide everything, to decide the fate of what comes next. Humanity, our lives, everything. You know what is going to happen next, right partner? The one who spoke was his best friend, his companion that was with him since day one, even before Malak or Nyx. Drake then continued, when you entered this path almost 2 years ago, you knew that this day would come, right? The day that would decide the fate of the supernatural, the day of judgment. Yeah. I am aware of this, it is now or never. It's time we end this. Issei spoke as he donned the armor. He was now completely wearing the armor. He could feel the armor's coldness and comfort inside of his body. It felt like it was a part of him. He summoned his book and took a look at the Dimension Lost, which had a new dimension added to it, which he was going to use it during his fight against his fight with Cices' Lucifer. He will personally kill the Grimoire, along with rest of their family. Soon enough, Nyx came inside. Seeing her lover wear the armor showed that he was ready for war. She called out to him. Issei turned around to see Nyx looking at him with a smile. As she spoke, it's time, the armies are waiting for your command. I am on my way. Tell the others that this is the final battle. Issei soon spoke from his armor and walked forward with Nyx following suit. They knew today is the day the final battle will begin. And no matter what happens, they won't be the one to fall. Scene change. Ajuka's hidden laboratory, 10:30 am. Cices was looking at the equipment, which was being worked on by Azazel and several of the geniuses of the remnants of the other factions and the devils. Cices then asked, how much longer till the device is ready? Azazel looked at Cices and spoke with a smile. Just a few minutes, putting the final touches on the controls of the device. Can't let him take the device from you, right? Don't worry, when it is done, you will be able to stop him. Cices gave a smile in response as he spoke. Excellent. Cices soon lost his smile and gritted his teeth in anger as he growled, I am going to make your demise as painful as possible. Issei Haidu. Droid Faction Headquarters, 11 am. Issei saw the droid army all awaiting his orders. They were ready for their final fight against the remnants of the supernatural. He was amongst his generals and some of his sleeper agents like Roswis and Afuria. He looked down at his army and took a deep breath and decided to give his final speech. Welcome everyone, Issei announced to everyone present as he continued, today is the day that you have all been waiting for, the day that would begin the fall of the supernatural factions. The same factions that have been a plague in this world for so long, that have ruined so many lives and damaged so many people for their own pleasure or motives. They will pay for their sins and will fall for what they have done. Their actions that have costed the lives of millions will no longer be entertained. No longer will they use the lives of humanity for their pleasure. Never again will they ever toy with us. Cause today, the fall of the supernatural is inevitable. The droids cheered as several exclaimed in happiness. All hail Supreme Leader Issei. All hail. The droids responded with a smile as Issei continued. I have seen how the supernatural has treated the very people they claim to not mistreat humanity. They treat them as uses to increase their own power. They lie to their people while performing their actions behind the back. A devil. A devil named Diodora Astaroth is one such devil that performs such heinous actions against humanity to acquire his peerage. Then we have Ria's Grimoire and Sona Sitri themselves. Manipulative people that were scouring for humans to use for their own purposes and achievements. Supernatural beings like these are not welcome in the human society. They will only manipulate humans for their selfish gains and let them perish while not giving a damn about what happens to them. Supernatural beings like these have no place in this world, and we shall make sure of that this happens, no matter the cost. The droids' cheers became even louder as Issei took a breather. He could see some of his generals like the devils clenching their fists in anger due to the experiences they went through, the most prominent being Ingvald and Miyuki, both of whom were toyed by the devils and used for their own purposes. We will split ourselves into two parts. The first part will be the aerial navy forces that we have, followed with the Death Star alongside the naval forces and the generals. The second part of the army will be the vehicles and majority of the droids. While some droids will be present in the first wave of armies, let us begin the final Armageddon, Issei announced coldly. As the droids all cheered, with Issei soon speaking. We will leave in an hour or two, I want you all to be prepared. The droids stopped cheering and saluted Issei, as he soon left the area, with him talking to the rest of the generals. We will all head in the Soulless One. Grievous, Malak, command your capital ships. Malakota, command the Death Star. It is time we end this war, once and for all. Everyone nodded in understanding as they all prepared for the final attack, the attack that would prove the end of the supernatural factions. 2 hours later, scene change. Soulless One, Underworld, 1 p.m. Issei and the droid faction were present, they destroyed several houses and have slain several pure-blooded devils. However, they haven't found Cices and the other leaders. Issei seemed frustrated, not because of them not slaying the devils, but it was too quiet for his liking, something he noticed was off. He knew how much Cices valued the devils, especially the pure-blooded ones, then why is he letting them die? Issei? Is something wrong? Issei looked at his mate Nix as he spoke with a serious tone. I have a bad feeling about this. This area is too quiet. I was expecting Cices to come out. But I think something is off too. The one who spoke is Athena. The situation was too quiet, as Artemis responded, sister. Issei is right, I don't see any traces of the devils or the leaders anywhere. Why haven't they shown themselves? Athena also asked the same question, as Charlotte responded. Maybe they ran off, thinking that hiding would save their lives. Issei shook his head and responded. No Charlie, that Siskin may be several things, but he will do anything to avenge his dear little Rias and his boy Milikas. He wouldn't just hide like this and wait for us to find him. He is planning something, and I know that due to the devices he has built. Issei spoke seriously, to which Quinella responded. But you destroyed their lab, didn't you? Issei nodded as he spoke. Yes, I did, but I know for a certain that Cices is not going to be quiet. He will fight back till his last breath. Issei was taken aback when suddenly, someone teleported inside the cockpit. Issei turned around to see it was Wilbert. He was critically damaged with his clothing being destroyed and his full body being bleeding. Mio and Stella were horrified by this, as they both screamed. Father, they rushed to him and helped him. As Issei asked seriously and with concern, what happened Wilbert? They are gonna. Wilbert was unable to complete, as suddenly a message opened up in the console, revealing to be Malakota and Grievous, however they seem to be struggling in their attempts. My lord, that Siskin has ambushed us with one huge attack, we are trying our best to defend, but won't for much longer. Everyone was horrified by this, as Issei gritted his teeth in fury. He did not hesitate as he teleported into the field, much to the horror of everyone. They screamed for his name in horror, knowing that there is a chance he may not survive. Malak too exclaimed in horror, along with Vader, who clenched their fists in fury. But he was too late. While Grievous and Malakota were able to prevent the attack, they were alive but critically injured, Grievous having his heart exposed, something which no one was able to do so. His armor was completely tattered. Even Kalani had a heart like Grievous, but their exoskeletons were designed such that it was almost impenetrable. Thankfully it was still beating. Grievous managed to get out of the Malevolence, with the hull being completely breached and exposed, however it could still be repaired. Malakota and the Malabranch were also badly injured. They had managed to get out from the inactive and damaged Death Star. Many of the Malabranch were out cold with tattered clothing and severe injuries, as Issei clenched his fists in fury. Malakota had something similar, she also had critical wounds to her body and needed immediate medical attention. He acted quickly and took them to his ship. As soon as he did so, the rest immediately were horrified by what they were seeing, as they tried their best in healing the injured. Grievous and Malakota spoke. My lord, please. Issei cuts them both off and speaks. Don't. Issei's voice was desperate as he continued. Don't blame yourselves for failing me, I am just glad you two are alive. But what happened? How did Cices manage to get this far? Issei's voice was desperate, he was happy they were alive and had teary-eyed, but he never thought they would succeed for this. While we were scouring for him, we were ambushed by a huge attack, we were caught off guard, and many of our star destroyers were destroyed. By the time we tried to contact it, it was too late. We managed to defend ourselves, but aside from me and Malakota and her Malabranch, no one survived. Grievous explained the situation, as Kalani added. Grievous is right, I have checked the console, that attack was strong enough to destroy an estimate of more than 60% of our naval force, but thanks to Grievous and Malakota it was reduced to 40%, we still have some ships on the left side, than on the right side. Issei gritted his teeth in anger, as someone else spoke, Lord Issei. I have been trying to reach you, but with him disabling teleportation thanks to the crow, I was not able to warn you, he has slain all my council members, leaving no trace of any survivors. I was barely able to escape with my life, please forgive me. Issei turned around to see Wilbert crying, as Mio and Stella calmed him down, despite being on the rank of sleeper agents. After Issei's offer, the two girls willingly joined Issei like Claire and Ryuka, only those that didn't join Issei completely were Roswas, Afuria and those whose souls were replaced by the Malebranche. Issei decided to take command, but before he could say anything, another message spoke up. Issei, hi do, how did you like my opening present? Issei looked at the screen as he recognized his voice. He gritted his teeth in fury, however Cices looked different. He looked like his true form, but it was different, it was more refined, and it was armor-like. Cices' tone was mocking as he knew this would break Issei's morale. He was going to crush the boy's morale. However, unbeknownst to him, he was only angering Issei, and that would be his biggest mistake. This is but a taste of the things to come. I will destroy everything you cherish and hold dear. I will cripple every last one of your generals, starting with that goddess of yours who is pregnant with that child of yours. If you wish to value them, come outside and surrender. Issei only gritted his teeth. He wanted to make him pay. He wanted to make him suffer for every single torment that he and his family had done to him. However, Nyx and Artemis along with the other girls kept their arms onto him and calmed him down. He realized that his anger needs to be saved, not wasted. He looked at Cices and spoke coldly. His cold tone made everyone including Malak shudder. He was really angry. Oh, I will come outside. Grimory, Issei spat as he spoke, but not to surrender, to let loose. I will show you what I am capable of tonight and why you have been fighting a losing battle. Issei soon pointed towards him and spoke, I am coming for you, you prideful brat, and I will crush you tonight. Issei looks at Kalani as he nodded, cutting off his feed before he could respond. He then contacted Malak and looked at Nyx and spoke. Malak, Nyx, I give the two of you full command of the armies, make sure to lay waste onto every single one of them. Issei's command was serious and cold, as Malak responded with a growl. I will, my lord. Nyx also nodded as she spoke. We will avenge what we have lost. Issei then nodded as he spoke with a serious tone, I will deal with that Grimory brat myself. Malakota, Grievous, you will be sent back home to be healed, along with the Malebranche. You will sit this war out. Malakota and Grievous were horrified by this, but before they could speak, Issei spoke with an understanding tone. Please, don't get me wrong, if you can get healed early you can join the fight, but until then, you must stay out. The two looked away helplessly, as Issei responded, I would rather have you alive and well than dead. Stay alive for my sake, both of you. The two looked at him and reluctantly nodded, as Issei teleported them to the Highschool residence, where he had stationed medical droids to heal the injured. He could only hope that heal with time. Scene change. Underworld battlefield, 1:30 p.m. Issei soon came downstairs from the portal, as he looked at the surviving leaders. They all had surprised at first, however they soon grinned recognizing the blades in his hands, the mortis blade being his signature weapon. They were thinking that he was going to give up. They looked at Issei's armor, which was something they never seen. Well, if it isn't the helpless dragon here to beg for mercy, Azazel spoke with a mocking tone, to which Issei only narrowed his gaze and spoke. You wish that was the case, but I am here to say my words, my message. The armor made him almost invulnerable, as he radiated his aura. It made the leaders shudder, but not lose their confidence. He soon walked forward fearlessly as he continued. It is simple, you leaders have been underestimating me, like you always do. You have never once tried to gauge out my true power. You have been fighting a losing war. Issei's tone changes to that of a mocking tone, as he continues, angering the leaders, well you pathetic sorry lot of supernatural beings were partying the fruits of my hard-earned labor, I was fighting to get stronger. That is why you will never win. You have become arrogant, Haidu. Michael spoke with a growl, to which Issei responded, no, I am not arrogant, just confident. And it's about time I let loose. Malak commenced the attack, make sure no one survives. Malak gave the confirmation as soon enough the remaining naval fleets, which were comprised of 60 star destroyers, including the Soulless One and Leviathan, joined forward, almost reaching a few inches away from the leaders in terms of vertical distance. They were still way above the ones on the ground. The leaders got on guard to deal with the army, however Issei was quick, he dashed at blinding speeds toward Cices as he spoke. If you'll excuse me, I will be borrowing this idiot. Cices looked down to see Issei right in front of him, mere inches away from him. A wormhole opened up behind Cices as he grabbed him and threw him before he could react into the wormhole. Cices Graphia shouted as she tried to freeze Issei, only for him to dash into the wormhole, which closed right after that, leaving the faction leaders and the others horrified, their only hope of defeating Issei. Moments later, the entire droid faction, or at least a heavy portion of them led by Malak and Nyx, as they soon spoke, attacked them, showed them no mercy. The devils and the remnants of the supernatural factions all glared at the attackers, while some of them paled seeing some of their guests, recognizing them to be their relatives. They hated Issei for turning their loved ones against them, they needed to stop them. Scene change. Unknown location. Cices managed to recover himself, gritting his teeth on letting his guard down in front of Issei. He glared at Issei, who soon joined in, as his flicked the arm he grabbed to release the destruction from his hand before it could damage his armor. The wormhole soon closed as well. Issei lost his blades and didn't bring out for this occasion, he will bring them in later. You really think that throwing me to whatever this place is? Cices looked around. This seemed to be an entirely different dimension that composed of several rocks and stones floating around, almost as if he was unable to understand what it is. It seemed to be an extraterrestrial dimension which Issei managed to bring him through. What is this place anyway? Cices looked around even more, he did not seem to be in Earth at all. He also found it hard to breathe in this dimension due to the lack of air, noting it to be like the dimensional gap. Welcome to the Ultra Space, a special dimension personally created by me. It has the same properties as outer space and is almost limitless. It is also far away from Earth as well, and here, I can let loose. Cices glared at Issei. He was far away from home, and the only way to get there is to beat Issei, as Issei spoke. Seems like you figured it out, huh? Well, it is time. Issei summoned his boosted gear and started to go all out. So you are willing to use that, huh? Drake spoke with an excited tone, as Cices gritted his teeth, with Issei speaking, indeed, it is time I show him his place. You should have stopped him and warned us about his treachery. Drake only glared at him and spoke angrily. You better think twice before saying that. Issei has seen me as a friend, and not as a tool like you lowly supernatural beings see us as. You are pathetic and scum for every humiliation you have put us through, and now you will pay in blood for what you have done. Drake declared angrily as Cices gritted his teeth, power emanating from his body. Issei knew what he had to do and started the chant of the true dragon god beyond armor. I, who was awakened, I used to be a red dragon emperor, who took the principle of domination from God, crushed him and mocked his fleeing body. I laughed at his defeat, well he failed to stop me. I fought the whole supernatural in my hands and who wanted to take revenge towards the people who hunted me. I will create a world that is supernatural and humanity will live harmony. I will be the strongest dragon emperor in history and I shall make people fear my name. True dragon god beyond armor. The whole body of Issei glowed. Cices tried to stop Issei from reaching this new level by firing his strongest attack as it hit him. Cices grinned seeing his defeat as he spoke mockingly. Is that all? Seems like even with the power of infinity and dreams, you are still a weakling. The dust that was present soon settled, which only followed by an immense surge of power that even made Cices fearful. Issei soon stood on the ground with almost a new legendary. It was completely different as it looked almost like a mechanical suit from a mecha anime, with green eyes and a helmet which was hexagonal in shape. The helmet was red in color. It had two shoulders that were triangular and extended even above his head. The gems were almost everywhere on his arms and limbs. The armor was a mixture of red and silver. However, unlike last time, it was at its true size, with it being twice of Issei's original height. What's the matter? Scared Issei grinned maniacally as Cices growled. Don't underestimate me. Cices fired a power of destruction bullets at Issei, who only raised his arms to block the attack. He then commanded. Revelation barrier. A red-colored barrier was generated as it completely absorbed the attacks like it was nothing. Once the attack was down, Issei dashed towards Cices and aimed a punch, to which Cices did the same, creating clashes across the entire arena. Issei and Cices backed off, with Issei responding with two turret blasts aimed at Cices, which he easily destroyed using a power of destruction barrier, which was followed by Issei punching him so hard in the gut that it made him wish to puke. What's the matter? So far your strength has not even excited me. Don't tell me you have been slacking off even after a year of being under attack. Issei spoke coldly, as Cices responded with a kick, which was easily blocked by Issei. He soon grabbed him by the leg and started swinging him in a 360-degree motion and threw him towards a rock, crashing him in the middle. So long gay Cices, Issei exclaimed mockingly as he looked at Cices, who was immobilized on the rubble as he raised his aura, completely destroying the rock into nothingness, as he shouted. I shall not be made a mockery of. Cices dashed towards Issei with a sword made of pure destruction as Issei brought out the dark saber. Twice, Issei twirled the blade as he blocked Cices' strikes. He never knew Cices was a sword fighter. This fight would perhaps be worth it. Issei responded with another slash aimed to his neck, which he blocked it with ease. He responded with a point-blank concentrated power of destruction as Issei responded that with a dragon shot. This caused a point-blank explosion as Issei managed to stand on the rubble of the room using it as a platform. Cices was sent flying as he used a rock as a footing. He once again jumped towards Issei while screaming. Cices followed up with slicing Issei in half by aiming at his head as Issei blocked it with a dark saber. He soon brought out the mortis blade and aimed a cutting slash at Cices' torso, which broke some of his destruction armor temporarily. This allowed Issei to realize one thing. The mortis blade can break through his destruction field with ease, meaning he can find his weak spot. However, much to Issei's surprise, his armor regenerated. Cices looked at Issei, he was neither exhausted nor he was affected. Issei was additionally passively boosting his strength by infinity, making him even more stronger as the time passes. Additionally, the air was making him choke. It was only thanks to this device that increased his strength significantly that he was able to stay in this dimension. Issei knew that the device must be present somewhere on his body, which meant if he is able to aim the mortis blade at the right spot and destroy the device, ending this battle effectively. However, he also knew that Cices was not going to yield that easily, since he had lost both his sister and his son. He needed to deal with him accordingly. Scene change. Underworld battlefield, 3 p.m. The members of the droid faction were facing off against the leaders and other remnants of the supernatural, as the generals outnumbered the leaders, however there were still the other house pillars. Izanami was facing against Kunu, under the illusion that she was Yusaka, which made the little fox girl devastated. She only expressed her disapproval at the Yaokai youngling. She easily slashed Kunu's tails, making her yell in pain. Izanami pointed her blade, to which Kunu could see that it was her mother that was trying to kill her. She cried tears of sadness, reasoning with Izanami Yusaka, but she was ignored. She was easily manipulated by the gods and her mother to turn against Issei, whom she had developed a liking to. Izanami gave her a less pain death as much as she could by stabbing her in the heart. Kunu soon closed her eyes, as she had a tear fall from her eyes. She was the first to fall by the droid faction's hand. RageRevan yelled seeing Kunu fall and unleashed foxfire at the primordial, who only slashed through it with relative ease. The nine-tailed fox only blinked once, as Izanami was right beside her, in front of her face. Before she could react, Izanami made one quick slash, causing her head to fall off from her body. The only last thing was the shocked expression on her body. "You chose poorly. Fox." Izanami looked at the corpse coldly, she had taken her enemies down. Izanami unsheathed her sword and looked at Malak and Nyx who were handling Azazel, more like it was a one-sided slaughter. Malak had both Mjolnir and his light blade with him, as he kept unleashing thunderstorms making Azazel struggle, with Nyx soon joining in, as she commanded the darkness to easily grab him by the arms. She commanded the darkness to bind him, allowing Malak to unleash a heavy thunderstorm at Azazel, causing him to scream in pain. Malak was on the ground, dashing to Azazel whose body was twitching with electricity as he spoke. "This one is for Grievous." Malak turned his body around and chopped off his wings, making him yell in pain due to the immense pain. He had a tear from his eye as he looked at the place where his wings once were. Nyx followed it up with destroying the wings with her darkness, resulting in nothing remaining. Azazel glared at the two with anger and hatred in his eyes, as he remembered the monster that brought about the end of the fallen angels, with him and Shemhazai being the last remaining. Malak walked close to him, his yellow eyes resulting in showing nothing but darkness. He grabbed the fallen by his throat and spoke coldly. "You have so much hatred in your eyes. For what? For believing a liar and following his lead, or for turning the savior of the world into your biggest enemy? No, your fear is because you always hated Issei, didn't you?" Azazel remained quiet while trying to turn his gaze away from Malak, as he coldly spoke. "Honey, since you made his life miserable, it is time to end you. Permanently." Malak's cold voice made Azazel fearful, as he knew what was going to happen next. Malak started to siphon his life energy, with the latter struggling to keep up with the draining. As time passed, Malak eventually dropped Azazel's dead corpse, that looked like it was fizzled out completely, similar to Susanoo and Baraquiel, that were also victims of this technique of Malak's. Azazel was the next to fall as he fluttered into a bunch of feathers. "Seems like it is over. Only Shemhazai remains." Malak nodded as he spoke, and it seems like Athena is dealing with her. Izanami also joined the two as she spoke. "Seems like your fight is also over, right?" The two nodded, as the three saw Athena fighting against Shemhazai. Athena was facing off against Shemhazai. The fallen angel was struggling against Lostball Terminal Armor Athena. The armor looked similar to Lostball Terminal Armor Artemis, except the color scheme of her clothing was dark purple, with a black shade, indicating her of her status as an evil goddess. She was given a ring, and that was made of amethyst as a ring. Her shield and spear became much stronger and enhanced, as she threw it at Shemhazai who could barely block the spear. Athena followed it with her shield which had Medusa's gaze on it. She turned Shemhazai's legs into stone. She soon commanded the spear which came back into her arms, and once again flung it so fast that it cuts his body in half. The last thing that Shemhazai had was a look of horror. Shemhazai, like Azazel, bursted into a flock of feathers as Athena returned to her normal state. She took a breather, as she was still not used to this new power of hers. She kissed the ring and smiled at Issei, thanking him for his help. She hoped that he would survive in that dimension, where he had taken Cices to. Scene change. Ultra space. Cices was looking at Issei coldly, as he charged his attack at Issei, with the intent to kill him. He dashed towards Issei ready to punch him only for Issei to block with two of his blades. Issei followed it with a kick aimed between his legs, making him shudder at where he hit him. The good thing is that the armor protected him, but he still felt the shockwaves, and that alone made him worrisome. Issei looked at the armor and grunted in annoyance. He is able to damage him, but he was nowhere near destroying that armor. He dashed toward Cices and slashed him multiple times. As Cices tried his best to block it, however, it grazed his armor at many locations due to Issei slashing him with the mortis blade. Issei was watching as the armor regenerated until he saw something fishy near his chest. He noted that as he fired several cannon blasts at Cices as he used his power of destruction to completely dispel the attacks. I told you it is useless, Cices declared angrily as he continued. Why don't you just die, damn it, you have destroyed everything that I and several others worked hard for years. You selfish bastard. Cices unleashed his strongest attack at Issei once again, to which he responded by using Infinity Blaster from Diabolo's Dragon God. He was able to use stronger versions of attacks from that armor without a problem. I am the selfish bastard, says the guys that blindly listened to his whore of a sister and decided to make my life miserable by letting her and I do anything they wanted with my life. Your peace, Cices, is nothing but a lie built on false promises. You don't care about your faction, just your sister and the rest of your pathetic excuse of a family. Issei then continued, angering Cices. You all are complicit as much as you wish to deny it. You spread lies of what I spoke to you, and you didn't even once think. Maybe I should double check the lies. But no, none of that. You were enjoying the rewards of my hard work, while I was only treated with absolute disdain and hatred. You deserve death, Cices. No. Yo, you deserve a fate worse than death. Issei spoke coldly as Cices in his anger and spite charged another power of destruction, as Issei dodged the attack as it completely destroyed another rock. But it is time to end this. I am done playing around. Issei's body glowed with even more strength. It was his only chance. He had to aim it near his chest, since he had a gut feeling that this is where the device will be. He first threw the dark saber followed by the mortis blade and aimed it at his chest. Cices tried to defend himself, but the dark saber destroyed the barrier. The two blades managed to reach his chest, which completely damaged the armor surrounding it and damaged something. Cices looked down in horror as he shouted, "No!" The device that Cices was using to power himself up was damaged. Cices pulled the blades and threw it as he tried to restore it, but Issei was not letting that happen, as Issei grabbed the blades and quickly dashed towards him as he immediately stabbed the device, causing him to scream even more in horror. There was an immediate explosion which pushed Issei behind as he looked at the dust cloud that was left behind. He saw Cices in his regular true form, which released uncontrollable amounts of power of destruction. No, this cannot be happening. I can't lose like this. Issei brought two of his blades together and spoke. No, this ends right now. Issei opened his chest cavity along with the two cannons showed up as several infinite boosts were heard. Issei unleashed a dark crimson energy blast. Scarlet Annihilation. Issei unleashed his strongest attack, which had both the power of dreams and infinity present, as Cices tried his best to defend himself, but was unable to do so. It easily destroyed the barriers created and eventually reached to him, consuming him completely. He screamed in pain as he tried to speak, but the pain was overwhelming that he couldn't even make words. He mentally cursed Issei for bringing him to this state, but he was too weak to stop Issei. The explosion happened, causing a dust storm as Drake asked, "Do you think that killed him?" Issei spoke with a sigh, "I hope not, I am not done with him yet." The dust soon settled down, revealing a half-alive Cices. His clothing was almost completely destroyed, leaving only his broken body, which was completely damaged, burned out. His whole body was bleeding. His face was a mess, with it also being bleeding, and he had lost one eye. But just like I wanted. Issei approached Cices still in his armor, the latter having fear in his eyes due to what Issei had done, as he spoke mockingly. "Oh, how the mighty Cices has fallen." Issei grabbed him by the hair and slammed him across the rock, which made him scream in pain as he begged Issei to let go of him. Issei only stopped till they reached the end of the rock. He looked at his broken and fearful face, grinning, seeing the man that made his life so miserable. He then stabbed the mortis blade directly between his legs at his hick, making him scream in pain. Cices screamed in pain. He kept it in for a while, as Cices kept screaming and groaning in pain, as Issei soon brought it out and cleaned it with a disinfectant. Issei then threw him on a nearby platform, making him almost cry in pain. "I am not done with you yet, so we are going to have our fun till then." Issei spoke with a grin as Cices became fearful. He knew what was going to happen, as Issei was going to give a painful death. Scene change. Underworld battlefield, 4:30 p.m. Michael was facing off against the combined efforts of Artemis and Vader, as Artemis, who was also in her lostable terminal armor like Athena, unleashed a barrage of arrows at Michael, who desperately tried to block the attacks. Vader joined in as well, as he unleashed his telekinesis to bind Michael. His anger was present, as his binding soon resulted in him crushing his body, making him yell out in pain. But he did not stop there. He could see Gabriel fighting off against the Shidu family in arena, along with Elizabeth, while Marana was assisting someone else. He saw Gabriel and Elizabeth mercilessly kill the Shidu family by stabbing them in their hearts, killing them as well. The last look they had was a look of fear. Michael glared at Vader and Artemis, both of whom were ready to finish their fight against Michael, as Vader spoke. "Artemis, are you ready?" Vader asked, to which Artemis responded. "Gladly, let's end this one's misery once and for all, and end the angelic race." Artemis charged many more magic arrows aimed at Michael's body, as Vader prevented him from moving. She aimed it at several vital points, making Michael scream in pain. Vader soon followed it with a slam aimed at his head and decapitating Michael once and for all. With that, another had fallen to the droid faction. Now only a select few fighters remained. Sona was struggling to keep up with Miyuki as she had a smile throughout their fight. In her eyes, Sona was barely a challenge to her. Miyuki used a specialized icy mist to obscure her view and ambush her from different sides. Miyuki was not only adept at water magic, but also in ice magic, as Miyuki spoke from the mist. "Oh, how I have waited for this moment, my dear sister. Seeing you writhe in pain and struggle is something I have always wanted to see." Sona shouted in pure anger and agony. She despised Issei and Miyuki for making her life as miserable as possible. "You bitch of a sister, I should have killed you when you were weak," Sona angrily shouted, losing all of her sanity. It was because of her existence why she is like that. Miyuki only chuckled in response. "Oh sister, you couldn't even kill me, even if you wanted to. Why? Oh, you wanna know why?" Miyuki unleashed a jet of speeding water aimed at Sona's left hand as she looked in horror. "Because you are weak, weakest amongst us three, yet you failed to admit it," Miyuki cackled, seeing Sona like this. The pain of her destroyed hand soon registered into her brain as she screamed in pain. Miyuki walked towards her sister as she spoke. "It's over." "No. This can't be over." Miyuki walked towards her and grabbed her sister by her chin as she spoke. "It's over, but don't worry, once you are dealt with, your family will be next." Miyuki sent her sister flying and unleashed a high current water that had slowly and steadily ripped apart every single body part in her body, soon resulting in nothing left but a pool of blood and other bodily parts. Miyuki followed it up by freezing the water and completely shattering the ice, resulting in nothing but red ice shards on the floor. Sona died a painful and agonizing death for her involvement in making her life miserable. Miyuki soon took a breather and she was joined by Artemis and Vader as Artemis spoke. "I presume you are done too." Miyuki nodded as she spoke. "Yep, that bitch got what she deserved. I think you should save your power for what comes next, as soon enough the battle will involve the last of the devils as well." Vader's words made Miyuki nod as she was excited in dealing with her parents. Meanwhile, Megari was dealing with Marana, Laisha, Sekvera and Gondal, who were easily overwhelming her with a barrage of magic spells, almost bringing her to her knees. "No. This can't be the end." Megari spoke with tears in her eyes as Gondal looked at her and spoke for her stead. "You chose this path, all the leaders are soon dead, and now you shall join too." Gondal unleashed a blast of magic at Megari, killing her instantly. With her death, the last of the Yokai has been eliminated. Now all fallen angels and Yokai have been wiped out. "Well, I think the war is soon going to come to an end." Marana responded cheerfully as they saw a wormhole which stopped any fights from happening immediately. Out came Issei, who was in his Orbalisk armor, as he revealed the head of Cices, Lucifer, who was nothing but a corpse head at this point. Issei raised him up to show to all the people present. No sooner did the faction saw his head, they lost the war completely. Issei saw that only Graphia was alive and she was fighting against Aine, Quinella and Charlotte. "Devils of the factions," Issei announced to everyone as he spoke coldly, "your war has been lost, the droid faction has won this war, your leader Cices Lucifer has been defeated." Issei soon slammed the head, crushing it into nothing but mush of facial organs and bones. "Now it is time for you all to perish," Issei spoke coldly, as Graphia looked at Issei in anger and screamed with all her might. She had lost everything and unleashed an aura of pure ice that sent Quinella, Charlotte and Aine flying. She glared at her sister in hatred as she supported someone that was the reason behind everyone's demise. She tried to make Aine see reason, but she failed to do so. Graphia then shouted with all of her might. Issei was not going to let that happen. Dashing at blinding speeds, he stabbed Graphia in the heart with the mortis blade. As she lost her anger and became overwhelmed with pain, she turned to Issei as she looked at him with horror yet hatred. "I won't let you harm my mates. Do." And now Aine nodded as she brought out an ice blade and stabbed her in the head. She looked in horror as she spoke. Aine." Aine had a tear fall from her eyes as Graphia soon lost her consciousness. Her corpse slumped to the ground, dead. Aine fell back as she looked away sadly. Her sister died by following the wrong man as she cursed Cices mentally for bringing her sister like this. Issei walked towards her and embraced her as he commanded Kalani and the others to finish the war once and for all. He looked towards Aine and spoke. "Let it out, Aine. I know taking down your sister was not easy." Aine cried onto Issei's body and no one stopped Issei. Even those that loved Issei knew what kind of a man Issei was as they watched the final battle take place. Meanwhile, Kalani was unleashing orbital bombardments, along with the droids commanding the Leviathan to annihilate the remnants of the DXD team, as La Folia slayed Le Fay without any mercy. Valerie and Ingvild along with the sleeper agents were dealing with their former friends, as Valerie kills both Arthur and Bikku without any mercy, with Ingvild making sure they are dead. The reason is that they refuse to see their mistakes, still insulting Issei until the very end. They hated Valerie as well, causing her to have no choice. Aika herself was personally killed by Kalani during an orbital bombardment. She was killed brutally at the hands of assassin droids, as she regretted what she had done in her final moments to her brother. The Team DXD was annihilated, leaving no trace of them left. The war was over, majority of their powerhouses were dealt with, and the group all gathered up as Issei spoke while releasing Aang, who was in a much better state. She hated killing her sister, but her sister had gone too far and did try to kill her even before she saw Cices' death. Good job guys, we are almost done with our war. With the leaders dead, only the 32 pillars remain. It's time we end this. Issei spoke as everyone nodded, with Malak speaking. Let's fix the Death Star and the Malevolence and begin the final purge of the devils. It is time we end this war once and for all. The others nodded in agreement as Issei soon gave a call to the medical droids and had some good news. Alright everyone, Grievous and the Malabranch are fine, they will be joining us for the final purge, so once we are done with the repairs, we will begin the final purge. Everyone nodded in agreement as they started to fix the Malevolence and the Death Star. It is time to end this war once and for all. 1 hour later. The droid faction were ready to bring about their final purge across the devils. They made sure they had to leave no survivors behind. The Star Destroyers were in their positions, as those that had been dead as against their families were heading toward their designated locations. Now let the final purge commence, Issei commanded coldly as he unleashed the orbital bombardments, killing many devils that were present. It was a one-sided massacre. I will be heading to the Citrus, I have a personal vendetta against them. Issei nodded to Miyuki's request as she soon teleported to the Citri household, with Sakvara and Leisha doing the same as Miyuki did. Malakota also decided to have some fun as she decided to toy with Sayerg and the Bale clan, or what remains of them, as she took her Malabranch with her, and plus with Coriana and Kusha with her, Sayerg is going to be devastated. Issei soon decided to pay the Gremory clan a visit, with Claire heading to the Phoenix family alongside the Mocha sisters to deal with the Phoenix. I will visit the Gremories.ca and you handle the rest. The others nodded as Malak spoke, mind if I join you too? The more the merrier, come. Malak nodded as the two soon teleported. The other generals and droids decided to slaughter everyone that got in their way. The two reached the Gremory mansion, where Malak raised his hand dealing with the guards, slaughtering them with relative ease. He choked them with telekinesis and flung them away. Issei blasted the doors as he and Malak slaughtered any maids or guards that they came across. They tried to use their magic to defend themselves only for them to be slaughtered like ants. They soon walked inside and headed inside. There they saw Ziocidas and Venelana looking at Issei and Malak with shock and horror. How are the two of you alive? Ziocidas asked with horror as Malak raised his hand, putting them in a force choke, grabbed the last two Gremories in their arm and bringing them close to Issei as he spoke. Cices and Graphia are dead. The last vestiges of the devils will be annihilated once we are done with the attack. Any and all remnants that are present in the human world will be hunted down and dealt with, and once we are done, humanity will be safe from your actions. Issei spoke coldly, causing the two Gremories to start tearing up, with Venelana growling in response. You monster. Issei shook his head and spoke. Thank you for your compliment, Lana. Issei spoke mockingly while grabbing her chin as she looked away in sadness. She had lost both her children, her daughter-in-law and her grandson, all killed by the men in front of him. You brought this on yourselves. Now perish. Issei brought out the mortis blade and stabbed it right in her heart. Venelana Ziocidas screamed with tears in his eyes as Venelana soon became overwhelmed with pain and grief as her eyes started to droop and she fell dead. Issei pulled out the blade and walked towards Ziocidas as he spoke. So Ziocidas, any last words from the second last survivor of the Gremory family? You won't be keeping that title for much longer though. Kill me, you monster. Issei nodded and spoke with a sinister grin, with pleasure. Malak, he is all yours. Malak started to choke him so hard and eventually he snapped his neck. He had a look of horror as he dropped dead on the ground. Malak soon released him as the two men walked out of the mansion. Kalani, commence orbital bombardment on the mansion, we are done with our business. Kalani gave the signal as the orbital bombardment was unleashed on the Gremory mansion, bringing the once elegant mansion to nothing but rubble. The two soon teleported back to the main ship as everyone else came in moments later. They all had satisfied smiles on their faces. I take it you girls are done with your business. Miyuki was the first to speak up as she spoke. Indeed, I slaughtered the entire Citri clan, taking down every last one of the members. They are now extinct. Claire nodded in agreement, remembering Riser's expression when he was killed by her hand. So now, the war is over, right? Issei nodded as he spoke. Yes. It is. All of the devils in the underworld have been wiped out, right Kalani? Kalani nodded in agreement as he spoke. Except for the ones in the room, there is no devil that is alive, all of them have been slain and eliminated. With that we can finally live our lives normally. Kalani spoke, however his tone had happiness inside of it, the war is finally over. The factions have been eliminated, there is no one that can threaten their way of life, and their future is secure. That means. We can all. Nick spoke with excitement as she continued, we can all live our lives normally. I totally agree. And Artemis spoke in agreement as she continued while keeping her hand on her belly, I can raise my child normally. And I will help, being a loving aunt to your future child. Athena spoke in agreement as Artemis only gave a smile to her. Quinella then spoke in remembrance. Oh, that reminds. Issei, didn't you promise us something? Issei flinched as Nyx added. That's right, you promised me that you would make me a mother, and you won't stop until I become pregnant. Nyx spoke as she had a smile towards Issei, making him shudder as the other girls also responded. Ain't no fair, you can't promise like that. Mocha Amok spoke with a promise like that as Mokiura added. That is right, I know you love Nyx the most, but you can't ignore us. The other girls that were in his harem also had looks of jealousy within him as Kalani spoke to Malak with a nervous tone. I will set the course back to the Haidu residence. Malak nodded in agreement as he saw Issei desperately trying to calm the girls as he spoke in an assuring tone. Alright fine, I will do it with all of you tonight, sounds good. The girls all seemed to be happy by this as the Navy soon was prepared to head back to their home back in Kuo town. As they reached there, the group managed to get down and head to their residence. They knew one thing and that thing was that the war was finally over. Now, Issei has only one job left for tonight, that is satisfying the girls in his harem, minus Artemis who was already pregnant. At nights, the sounds of ecstasy and moaning were heard. Epilogue. No more supernatural. The next day, Haidu residence, 9:30 am. Issei was completely fizzled out from last night's activity, it felt like they sucked his soul alive, as Malak rushed to him and responded, easy brother. He helped him to the breakfast table. Here, those girls just don't know when to stop, don't they? Issei spoke with a tired sigh as he soon took a seat, it was one after the other, they made sure to give me as much pleasure as possible, before they passed out. Despite that, none were able to bring to complete exhaustion. That means, I take it the girls will not join us. Issei nodded as he spoke, they all seem to be exhausted, none will be joining us till lunch, and if things go by at least till evening. The scene changes to the girls all sleeping happily after their pleasure session with their lover, all of them had happy looks on their faces. They all had blankets thankfully covering their privates, so that no one except for Issei is allowed to see them. Back with Issei, he was sitting on the table, where only Malak, Grievous, Vader, Kalani, Stella and Eryuka were seated. He then looked around, only to find some people missing. Hey, where is Artemis and the other girls? Issei asked with concern, as Malak looked towards the kitchen, as someone came inside the table with food in her plates, as she spoke. Right here, darling. Issei turned around to see Artemis, alongside Ingvild, Valerie, Laisha, Gondel, Izanami, Gabriel, Marana and Sakvara, all of whom had plates in their hands, as she spoke with a smile. Breakfast is ready. The rest of the people also settled down, as they started to have their breakfast, as Malak asked. Speaking of stuff, where is Krom Kruch? Issei looked at him and spoke, he has been traveling the world, after all he has been trapped in the gear for God knows how long. Issei spoke with a shrug as the devils in the room did not feel a headache. This was primarily because, after the heaven system fall, there was no way for anyone to exorcise or punish devils. Additionally, the sacred gear system's destruction also made sure that the people that received their sacred gears remained undetectable and unnoticeable by the factions. I see. So he will come back one day. He must have been real grateful, Malak spoke adding his own words, as he spoke, yep, and as a favor he told me that he would be dealing with any remnants of the supernatural that he would come across. That is fair. Now we can rest for a while. Although, out of curiosity, where is the hero faction all this while? We tried to locate them, but they seem to have just vanished out of existence. Vader asked, to which Issei spoke. They have been in hiding, so we will have to expand our search, but don't worry, they will be dealt with accordingly. Issei spoke with a smile, as Vader nodded, he opened the mouth cavity and started to have his breakfast. Artemis then spoke, Issei, you don't mind if we go to shop for the clothes for the baby? Isn't it a bit early for that? I mean, we can buy the clothes anytime. Artemis shook her head and responded, I won't have time for that, the doctor told me that as my pregnancy would become worse. And I need to take care of myself, I wouldn't be able to handle the crowds that come in from the malls. Artemis spoke with a worried tone, as Issei sighed, he then spoke. Fine, you may. Although, I would stake to buy clothes that would be alright for both a boy or a girl. Artemis nodded in understanding, as he suddenly got a call on his phone. Who is it? Ingvild asked Issei, to which he looked at the caller ID, and was surprised by the person that called him. It is Persephone. Issei picked up the phone and spoke, yeah. Wait right now alright. I'll come after breakfast. Issei disconnected the call as Gondal asked. Is something the matter, Issei? Gondal started to call him by his first name since Issei asked her to do so. They were way past lordship and only his generals can call him by that name. Hades wants to meet me now. He told me that he has come across something interesting. Apparently he found out about Lilith, the mother of devils. He asked me to come and check it. Valerie and Ingvild became wide-eyed as Valerie asked. Seriously, she had gone missing for a very long time. Issei shook his head and spoke. I don't know, but he asked me to see if he could restore her. Valerie nodded as she spoke. I see. Issei turned to Kalani and he responded, you wish for me to come? Yes, in case she is too injured, I am going to need your help. Kalani nodded as Valerie asked. Let me also come, I wish to see my ancestor, please Issei. Issei shook his head and spoke, no, Valerie. I am not saying this because I don't want you. Persephone and Hades aren't fans of you and Ingvild, they still are a bit weary of you. You can visit her later, once we bring her to the droid faction base. Both Ingvild and Valerie seemed saddened by this, as Issei shook his head and spoke, don't worry, things will get better. I mean you two did help a lot in the droid faction's goals, right? The two girls looked at him and nodded as Issei looked at Kalani. They decided to finish their breakfast as soon as possible and head to Hades' domain. He soon waved goodbye to the rest and teleported alongside Kalani as the two teleported to the Hades' domain. Scene change. Hades' domain, 11 AM. Issei and Kalani teleported to the domain where they had been greeted by Charon as he spoke with a smile. Lord Hades and Lady Persephone have been expecting you. Issei nodded as he followed Charon alongside Kalani as they were greeted by Persephone and Hades, with the two happily greeting Issei. I am glad you could make it at such a short notice, Ice-chan. Persephone explained happily as Issei responded, anything for you. Speaking of which, how did you find Lilith? I will explain, while I lead you two to her. Hades was the one to speak as he led them to the area. He then started to speak. While you were dealing with the factions, we decided to raid the final bases of the Neo Chaos Brigade, found out there was a whole laboratory that was present, we raided the lab and found her. Hades soon opened the door, revealing Melano, Macaria and Demeter, all looking at her and the machines that were keeping her alive. The trio looked at the four and immediately greeted them. Issei looked at Demeter, who had a look of concern seeing him here. Demeter. Issei looked at her and responded, how have you been doing? Better. Thanks to you. Issei nodded as Hades spoke, trying to get everyone's attention. Alright, Issei. Now I will explain to you what we have found out about her. Issei looked at him and nodded as Hades continued, when we found her, she was almost dead if anything, before we had located her, when we first discovered her, her body was nothing but rotting and decaying. Upon inspection by our devices, we found out something else, Melano. Right, Dad? Melano brought out a small magic pad as she spoke. Ice-chan, look. The body had serious damage, her body was discovered to be in maternal strain, meaning she was forced to give birth to devils over and over again. I believe this was due to the Lucifer making her birth devils non-stop, which I believe is the first generation of the 72 pillars and the extra demons. Melano responded with a smile, bingo, I see. Persephone then spoke her own words, according to my husband, Lucifer's cruelty and tyranny also extends to his own wife Lilith, as he continuously forced her to give birth to devils non-stop so he could create his personal devil army for his ambition, to the point where she fell into a coma with her body deteriorated to the point of necrosis. No woman should deserve what Lilith has been through. She defied Adam and the God of the Bible due to them overpowering their will on her, and then Lucifer did this to her. She has not had a good life in any way. Issei agreed with his mother figure as she continued, we want to know if you can find a way to help and restore her. I know you did for Quinella and Charlotte, so can you do for her as well? Issei only spoke with a smile, I will try. Kalani, can you assess her body? I shall, my lord. Kalani walked closer to her and asked Macaria, can you open the lid for a while? I can. But any more than 30 minutes and there would be damage to the body. Macaria warned Kalani, who spoke with a smile, I know what I am doing, have faith in me, it will take me less than 10 minutes to analyze her body. Kalani brought out several portable analysis devices and scanned her body to see if she can be fixed and helped with her condition. It took him a few moments, but Kalani motioned to Macaria, who nodded as she closed the lid. He then looked at them and spoke with a neutral tone. She can be restored. Kalani's words made many happy as he then continued. However, it is going to take at least a few weeks to restore her body. The happiness soon reduced and many became concerned as Issei asked, why? Her reproductive organs, abdomen, muscles and bones surrounding those organs are damaged beyond repair. It will take back to tank healing of weeks to repair her body, but that is not even considering her mental state. It is damaged due to the immense pain that she had to endure. So, it will take some time for her to recover back to her old self. Kalani explained, making everyone nod in understanding, as he then spoke. Then I predict that she needs therapy as well, it won't be easy, and that would take an additional time, so if we can work it out, we can help her. Persephone then walked forward and spoke. As you see fit. Kalani, but just make sure she is alright, okay? Kalani nodded as he spoke. We can begin the transport as soon as possible, whenever you see fit. Persephone looked at Hades, who nodded as he spoke with a neutral tone. We will send her in a few minutes. Kalani nodded as he spoke. My lord, I will head to base to prepare the Bacta, let the others know. Kalani soon teleported, leaving Issei and the others alone, with them having their own talks on what they should be doing in the future, now that the war is over. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi. Issei being sucked in a multicolored portal to a different universe. 8 months later, droid faction base, 11:30 p.m. Issei was in a desperate hurry, alongside Athena, who were all having looks of horror, as she kept speaking to someone in a stretcher. Breathe Artie, breathe. On the stretcher was Artemis, who was crying in pain. This was due to her water breaking, indicating that she was ready to give birth. Along with her was Malak and Vader, both of whom were rushing to the wardroom. Using his superior speed, Malak and Vader opened the door, and they saw Kalani and several medical droids waiting for them. This way, Issei. Malak spoke as Issei and Athena nodded. They were followed by the rest of Issei's new family and friends, with another woman joining in. She was described to be a beautiful woman, with snow-white hair and blood-red eyes. She had horns on her head and wore a black fully sleeved shirt. She wore a belt around her hips and a red dress skirt. Additionally, she wore leggings that covered her legs all the way to her upper thighs and red heels. She also had big breasts, as common with many women of the devil race. This was Lilith, Adam's ex-wife and the former wife of Lucifer Morningstar. Lilith had a look of concern. She was worried for Issei and Artemis, as she saw them as her new family. It was evident that she cared for them. The pain of childbirth was all too familiar to her. When her body was healed and fixed, she had constant nightmares of the agonizing to her. She could only hope they would be alright. Will they be alright? Lilith spoke, to which Valerie responded. Don't worry, ancestor, Artemis is strong, she can handle the childbirth without a problem. Valerie responded, as Izanami added, she was also one of the few that went a major change as well. She had become more friendlier and cheerful due to her demeanor in the real world, but she did visit Yomi to do her duty in dealing with the underworld souls. Valerie is right, she will handle it properly, and with Darling with her, it should be alright. Izanami added with a smile, making Lilith nod, as soon Persephone and her family also showed up. Where are they? Persephone demanded with a worried expression, her adoptive son and future daughter-in-law. Inside the wardroom, Artemis is ready to give birth. Nick spoke as she pointed to the wardroom, where the operation was in progress. Outside, Malak and Vader were looking concerned. They could only hope that they are alright. Scene change. Kalani was looking at the vitals as several machines were attached using cords, monitoring her heartbeat and blood pressure, to name a few. Athena and Issei were using healing magic to reduce the pain as much as they could. Take deep breaths, Artie. Artemis followed up with that as several medical droids were present at different locations. Artemis kept yelling in pain in small breaks as Kalani spoke. Keep pushing, Artemis. Artemis shouted in response, I am trying, you damn droid, it is not easy. Kalani was taken aback, but he knew it was the hormones that were making her like that, which was worsened due to the pain, as she kept screaming and pushing, trying to get the child out. One of the medical droids spoke. I can see the head. Athena had some hope as she spoke, just a little more, Artemis, the head can be seen. Artemis nodded as Issei kept holding her left hand, refusing to let go of it. He has been holding it ever since she was in the wardroom. Issei spoke, hang in there, Artie. Artemis tried her best to smile, but couldn't due to the immense pain. She kept pushing as the upper torso and hands were starting to be seen. The medical droids then spoke. The limbs are starting to appear. Kalani then spoke, a final push, Artemis, and the pain will end. Artemis screamed as she pushed with all of her might. As the droid managed to grab the baby, the same droid smacked the baby at its ass, and soon something was heard that only left the machine's beeping sounds on. Issei and Artemis, along with Athena, looked at the child that was on the droid as he identified his gender and spoke. It's a boy. Artemis soon had tears in her eyes as the droid soon came to her and placed the baby right next to her bed. Issei also had teary-eyed. He was finally a father of his own. They both were happy. No, they were ecstatic to be parents. Athena was also ecstatic by this revelation as she kept her hand on her stomach. She was pregnant due to the constant sessions she had with Issei, but she was not the only one. Even Nyx and Mokayura were expecting their first child. However, Athena was the second to be pregnant, Nyx was the third, and Mokayura was the fourth. Scene change. 1 hour later, the doors soon opened up, revealing Artemis holding a small baby in her arms. The child had already fallen off to sleep, and everyone was ecstatic to hear the news. Both Persephone and Hades were overjoyed to be grandparents as they asked to hold the child, which Artemis happily gave. Oh, he is so cute, Persephone cooed, seeing the child sleep happily in her arms, as Hades added, indeed, this little one is cute. May I hold him as well? Vader asked, to which Persephone gave the child to him. Grievous then spoke. Such a little being, is that what all living creatures are when they come to this world? Issei looked at Grievous and spoke. Not all, most of us are. We start off as small babies and then we grow up to what we are. Many nodded in agreement to Issei, except for a few like Athena for instance who remembered her birth very well. She shook her head knowing that was her past, her child will not suffer the same fate as she once did. She looked at her true family celebrating the birth of the firstborn of the new family. She knew that there was no one to threaten her family or harm her in any way. All the remnants of the supernatural have been dealt with, including the hero faction, no one has survived. Now they can finally live in peace. She knew there were also some budding relationships, one between Malak and Hestia. She wondered how long will that last, however she knew that no matter what happens, there will be happiness and peace from now on. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.